I needed to step back and learn how to do something, and I love to learn. So I get excited when I'm shown something and I'm able to catch on and then go ahead and do the process again by myself.
What is the government afraid of in talking about history? Is it because it doesn't have the capacity to address it, or it just doesn't want to address it?
Why are we not permitted just to be who we are, be it either by culture or by design? But we have to have so many laws created for us or anyone else who does not fit the quote unquote norm in order to survive. And I think that educators are. My legal name is Jeahne Spann Davis. I go by JR. I am a native of New York, Bronx, New York. Traveled quite a bit throughout the United States as my dad is a retired Marine, has passed on. And I currently reside in Florida, have been here for 20 plus years now, actually, a little over 25 years. And just love the weather here when it's a nice semi Caribbean weather. A little bit of coolness because it can get so hot here. Oh my goodness. But mother of two, I have seven bonus children, and I love to learn. I also love to educate. I teach finances, and I'm also a school teacher. For middle school students between the grades of 6 and 8, I teach history.
All right, that's interesting. There is a lot there to cover. Of course, like you already noticed, we spend a lot of time here talking about storytelling because that is fundamentally important for us. So now, in the course of this conversation, we will learn about you, then where you are coming from, and why you are doing what you are doing. That is actually the second part of the conversation. So, tell me, what do you remember of yourself growing up in New York?
Oh, goodness. Well, I was there for a little while because being a military brat, like I said, we did travel a bit. But I do recall one year, my mother says that I just cried. I didn't want to leave New York. We were actually, I believe we were on our way to California, and I didn't want to go. So I did go for that first year. We came back to visit grandma and grandpa in the summer, which we always did. And for the second year, my mom did allow me to stay in New York. So I did in New York, and I absolutely loved it. When I would go back to New York visiting in the summer, my friends were still there, and it was just nice to be able to travel but still come back and know that the friends that I had developed when I was young were still there. So that gives you, a good foundation, a solid foundation to return to. So New York is always home, even though I visit only occasionally now.
That's lovely. That's lovely. But how was New York of your infancy? How was it like? What would you give people the chance to be able to see of New York through your experiences? How was it like living in New York at the time?
Well, for the second grade, I was just a little girl. I was about 6 years old. Yeah, I was about 6 years old, and I enjoyed it really. My aunt was in a couple of grades ahead of me, and she would always take care of me while I was in school. She would allow me to do some different things with her, and it was just exciting. I got to learn many things. The school system there at the time was very fast paced, and it just seemed like your education was just accelerated. I enjoyed the neighborhood, playing with my friends, and of course, grandma and great grandma's cooking. and it was just a lovely time. Being able to go back in the summertime as I was growing up and to see those friends that were there just from my young years was just awesome. Just a great time to have them there every time I went back.
All right, that's interesting. Now, today you are teaching a history. Could you tell us a bit of what aspect of history you are teaching the children?
Oh, certainly. Right now we're in the American Revolution, the Civil War. Um, excuse me. Talking about slavery, the revolution of America, the colonies. It has really and truly just been an interesting venture. I just went into teaching actually this past year when the school season started. I was looking to do something a little bit different and just to be able to explore and help to expand minds on a different level and just impart, what I have learned throughout my years as well as the history of the United States. So it's been a nice journey thus far.
I'm really very curious of the United States and also the history and the operation there because, of course, I continue to interview people. As you already noticed by now, our focus is the African diaspora, which means wherever you might find yourself, if you are of an African ancestry, your history, your experiences is important to us. And of course, that of the United States is particularly interesting because of what have happened. And now you are talking of the revolution, the slavery, and all of that. Of course, we might have time to be able to touch each and every one of them because they all are a word of their own. They need a bit of context to be able to establish them and then help people to understand what they need to understand about them. So I remember a guy was interviewing a few weeks ago. Now we are working on the video to get it out perhaps in a few weeks from now. And we're talking about the role of the United States in the Second World War, particularly what happened to African Americans who were fighting in the war. And when they returned to the year, they returned to the United States, what happened to them and all of that. Then I was sort of checking it out on history.com. It is not really encouraging what have happened. Of course, maybe we'll get to that, or maybe we will not get to that. But I'm only trying to say that the history of the African American or the people of African descent in the United States is particularly important for me. It's particularly interesting for me to learn about. Could you tell me why you are interested in history? What drove you into that?
Well, everyone in my family is an educator. Uh, I would say almost all of my aunts and uncles. I have um, 8 aunts and uncles living are educators. They have all been in the school system at some point in time. My mother also eventually went into teaching. And learning about our history is something that I think is very important. We have to, know the true aspect of where we come from, how this country was truly built, the things that have happened to all people, be they Africana or any other nationality, any other race of people. As I tell my students, America has gone into countries and just taken over. The pillaging, the destruction of history, the destruction of people. We talked about the Native American. America came. The Europeans came to America and decided that they wanted a land where the Indians originally had resided, and you go from a vast country to being placed in a box. And then you take our people, Africa. Europeans reach Africa and they see it as a form of, oh, free labor. We need our country to be built up. So we're just going to make a deal with some of the folks who were here to take their people, or we're just going to take their people without permission and put them on ships and cart them over to different countries to where we are as Europeans and, feed them whatever we can feed them as far and have them just go on about building the country. And it's a shame that they're trying to remove all of this history from the education system. I actually had a student ask me, well, are you going to teach us history or are you going to teach us about the truth? And I explained to the student, well, of course we have to abide by what they quote unquote would like me to teach you, but I have no problem delving into some real issues about things that are happening. And the sad part is you don't really have enough time in a 45-minute class. Um, so I do the best that I can with the time that I have to educate my students, and I look up different information, and it's a learning experience for me at the same time as well, because there's just so much information out there about our history that you just can't learn it all.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, like I said, this is each of them is actually a kind of a box of their own, so that when you open in, you have a lot of things to explain in them. But I'm sort of curious. So a child is telling you, "Are you going to teach us history or teach us the truth?" What does that mean? Can you expand on that?
Oh, definitely. So, when you look at the textbooks, it's going to give you one page about slavery. It's not going to really go into any depth about the cruelty and exactly how the African civilization was brought over to um, the United States, and the deplorable conditions in which they lived, how they were treated. Um, the birth of children, the tearing apart of families, which is part of the reason we have so much dysfunction going on in our families today. When you are among your people and you're learning your heritage and you're learning about the things that are going on in your community, you can look and see that you have a mother and a father and the children are growing up. But when you come over to away from you. The negativity of just tearing the family apart, separating a husband and a wife, or separating a mother and her children. And unfortunately, those terrible things are still going on today. And those are the things that the student is really asking about. Are you going to get in depth about what really happened, what was going on with the African people in those days, and the things that we have contributed to this country, to this society, how we have grown as a people, but yet and still we have to still learn how to function and support as a people.
All right, I would really go to talk about that. That is really cool. That child must be very intelligent to sort of ask that question. Now, how do we really teach history? How simple is it to really teach history, looking at what have happened that we want to call history? Now, assuming that the person who is teaching this history is somebody who lineage have been the perpetrator of this crime, how are they going to teach that history to people? Is it going to be like the way you are referring to now? Mali the people, humiliate the people, destroy family. Is that how they will put it? Or they will tell the same history, but do it in a way that they will not use those terms, or those terms will not be perceived as if people will not see that genocide that actually take place, but they will never use it like that. So I'm trying to understand how simple is it to really teach history, and what do we really teach in history?
That's a good question. I can't speak for anyone else. I think there are some individuals, be they black, white, red, yellow, green, or orange, purple, Jamoke regardless, that will actually tell the truth, that will actually look into what history is all about, what happened to the different peoples that were brought over to this country, that were enslaved. Um, excuse me. I believe that there are some individuals, some teachers, some educators who really and truly want to connect, if that is a good word to use, to connect others, our young folks, with what's going on in the country. Racism has never died. I tell people all the time, if you look at the Constitution, there are so many laws in place for your African American to be able to walk this earth as a quote unquote free person, as a person who is able to do the different things that we are so called allowed to do. Think about it. In the United States, there's a law that says African Americans can wear their hair in any manner in which they choose. Why is there a law that states that? Why are we not permitted just to be who we are, be it either by culture or by design? But we have to have so many laws created for us or anyone else who does not fit the quote unquote norm in order to survive. And I think that educators are some, if not the majority, are truly looking for a way to be able to tell the truth about what has transpired over the last two, four, 600 years, really since the beginning of time. Um, because slavery is nothing new. The imprisonment of a people is nothing new. That goes way back to biblical days. Um, but I think what would be most important is for someone of color, any color, learning about where they come from, what exactly happened with their people. And I think that, good educators will spark that interest in a student that they're teaching who may one day go out and, you know, do that DNA ancestry testing and what have you, or actually go out and do real research.
All right, thank you so much for that. I like this conversation. It is really very interesting. In fact, this is why we are here. And you we already noticed that we are not just talking about global experience. We're not just talking about general experience. We're talking about the experiences of the African descent, the experiences of African diaspora. We might be biased, but that is what we are interested in. I'm not just interested in generality of the story. So this is why the question I'm asking you is
Mm-hmm.
related to the experiences of the people that are within our demography. That is what I'm interested in. I already
Mm-hmm.
established that. Okay. So now, um, what is the reaction of the students when they hear you refer to things the way they really have happened? Okay, this is what I mean. um, you see, a lot of genocide have happened to the African people. By African people, I mean also the extension to African diaspora because we are the same people, no? We are treated, we are massacred for the same reason. For this father, we are African. That is what we are suffering for, no? So when you take up the argument like this, you start talking of the destruction of the family, because that is actually what happened. Only that when that story is told by another person, they don't use that terms. um, because it would be a common sense now. If you use that term as a perpetrator of that crime to explain that, it means that you are saying you are a bad person. And you don't want to say you are a bad person, so you look for a way to paint it so that the adage in African is that if the hunter tells the story, it will always appear that the animal that is being hunted, they are always bad. Only that we never want to hear their whole side of the story. This is why I think, therefore, it is important that we try to understand also to those who are victims of this situation, who family have been humiliated, who hundreds of thousands and millions of people have been mutilated. How do they feel
Mm-hmm.
about this situation? Can we just say a general story, or can we also hear this story from their point of view? So, what do the people feel about it?
Well, I think that people are disheartened, disgusted, hurt when you sit down and talk about things that have truly happened to the African people. Um, it is it can be discouraging sometimes, um, because you think about your ancestry, you think about what has happened to your people, you think about how it has affected you today and where you are in your life, and you wonder, well, am I going to be able to move past what is going on? It almost opens up a fresh wound. You may not have experienced it personally, but you do empathize. You do feel that rage, that anger as to what has transpired, and you're looking for a way to improve life. I don't want to use the word in general, but improve life for the African people, for yourself, as that may go, and the feelings, the emotions. Wow, they're up and down, they're high and low, and they're just it it it, it can just break your heart and bring you to tears about some of the things that were practiced um, in those times, and that may still be being practiced today.
Now, tell me about the healing. This is going to be very important. You see, I'm not going to look at the Europeans as people who are only evil. They have also done some good things. I know that they have done some good things. So, from that point of view, I want to look at the healing. In the United States, have there really been a healing to the point that those who have been this unjustly treated, because now we are talking about history now, there can be a system put in place to help them heal so that they can move on. You see, I was interviewing an expert, a historian, an expert on memory, also from the United States, a couple of days ago, and we were talking of the situation where maybe, for example, a certain group of people have been denied access to education. Of course, you know that the African American people have been denied access to education for several years. Then at a point, the law now say, okay, you cannot be educated. But if education is good, other people that be given this good tea to move on, and they have been going on. Now, we now say, okay, now you can finally start. What kind of start are you going to start? Maybe because you have been mutilated, you have been deliberately denied the access to be able to live in the so-called free world, you have therefore been disenfranchised. Now that we say you can move on in this relay, are they given the instrument to be able to compete? Or are they just thrown into the competition and say, okay, now you are free, compete with other people that have been ahead of you, catch up. So I'm trying to understand it from that perspective.
I don't think that you can just throw someone out there and tell them to compete. I think that if the doors are opened for the disadvantaged individuals, for the Africans who have been mutilated and families destroyed, and you're trying to rebuild, you have to start from the ground. I think there needs to be a way in which they can be educated and brought up to speed. Now, that's not something that can happen overnight. There has to be a plan put in place. There has to be um, a means of support in order to enable individuals to learn. Some folks may not be able to read, to write. They may not be able to comprehend everything that's going on around them. So you can't just throw them out there in the flux of things and just say, hey, this is what you need to do and this is how you do it. No, it has to be a gradual process. And with that being the case, you're educating the adults who are already out there that are being thrown into the so-called system of the way things are today. But it also gives us the opportunity to teach the young, to bring them up accordingly so that they are able to help those who are older. Because if you think about it, someone who is just thrown into a situation, is not familiar with the way things go, it's going to take them a little bit of time to grasp. But yet, if you're working with younger individuals, younger students, there may be an opportunity there to allow them to also be the teachers of their parents. It's like when you come to the United States, you don't speak English, your child is young, and the child can pick up English very quickly, and they become the translator for you. So that would be the same thing in learning how to grasp and deal with what is going on in society today. It's hard, most definitely. It is definitely hard. You have the language barrier. You have just comprehension of just the way life is today, and to be able to also consider the fact that you still have those marks in your brain from things that have happened in the past, especially if you've lived through any of that. So I think it's a process that can be done, and that's a way to healing. I don't know that everything can be 100% completely healed. There's always going to be some residue of the ugliness of the absolute truth.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Jeahne. Now, we are saying this is what could have been done, or this is what could be done. It could be good, but what has actually been done? What has actually happened in this process of reintegrated a people that was formerly enslaved, people that was formerly denied access to the society, and then they eventually were integrated. So I'm trying to understand what actually happened from the point of view of history. Were there this reintegration, the process of helping them to be properly reintegrated, or were they just thrown in terms of historically thinking? What really happened?
Well, you have some who were just thrown into society. And then you do have some who were actually taught. I mean, you can look at Webb Du Bois, Booker T. Washington, some of those and men from the past who actually were educated, and they went out there to educate others and to teach others about the things that were actually going on, and showing them and demonstrating how they, with a bit of an education, could also excel. So I think over time, here we are in 2025, and Happy New Year, by the
Happy New Year
way.
to you, sister.
Um, yes, here we are now in 2025, where you can actually go and get an education. You can learn different languages. You can learn about history. You can learn about what has happened to our African brothers and sisters, and how the country has just been, excuse me, mutilated and destroyed, and it's being, rebuilt slowly in some areas. And there are some people who are still uh, not aware of what is happening in today's society. However, that doesn't mean that they're incapable of learning. That doesn't mean that history cannot be taught to educate them, to help them move forward, to help them move past where they are and the things that have happened in the past. I believe that we need to keep an open mind. I believe that we still need to speak the truth at all times, tell the truth, and make people aware of the truth. But we also have to learn from that truth. What is it about that truth that we can extrapolate and correct? What can we work on to improve? Even in 2025, there are many areas in which we need to improve. Communication is the key to any relationship. So communication must be open and it must be true.
I'm talking of communication. I'm talking of history, as we have spoken up to this particular point in this conversation. Somebody might be wondering, and I am wondering, why do we really study history? What is the essence of it? This is because, you see, in the course of your initial statement, you said that history is being taken away from education. And this have happened in Nigeria. I'm coming from Nigeria. For several years, history was taken away from the curriculum. And this is a country that is highly diverse, with different people coming together with different historical experiences, where we should have been talking of the importance of coordinating the narrative. So somebody decided to remove history so that we don't even know what happened before. So now I'm asking, what is the importance of history?
Wow. The importance of history. I think that the importance of history helps people, individuals, understand who they are. It doesn't necessarily define who you are. The purpose of history is to learn from the mistakes that were made, improve upon the successes that were created and had and experienced, and to find a way for history not to repeat itself. There's a saying that all history does is repeat itself, because we're dealing with man, and the emotions and things of man, excuse me, hasn't necessarily changed over time. I mean, there's sadness, happiness, love, dislike, hate, revenge. All of those things go way back, and they're still today. But with an understanding of history and how the negative emotions have affected history, I believe that we can learn from all of that to understand that there are things that we can do to make a better history moving forward.
Now I'm thinking, if all you are saying is reasonable, because for me it is reasonable, How come some state like the United States or like in Nigeria they are removing history or they are not I don't know whether that actually is correct from my perspective. They are not promoting enough of history, or maybe they are not promoting enough of the history from other perspective. They have a narrative that they want everybody to adhere to. Of course, this is very common of the European, no? European actually are some of the latest to world history, but they want to make everybody compel everybody to see the world through their narrative. And by doing this, of course, they cause a lot of damage to many other people and places. Only that later, as we are moving on, we're beginning to see that it was wrong. That the world is bigger than the small space that you call Europe. The world is a huge, huge place. There is diverse experiences. So that when we want to talk about human experience, we cannot just be looking at Aristotle and Julius Caesar. There is a lot that we need to learn about human history. So European history is not human history. European history is just one small part of human history. So if all what you have said should make sense to the people, because I think it should, why are they not paying attention, pay more attention of people learning more about history? Because why I'm asking this question is because you are talking about healing. That is what you are saying, no? That we study history so that we can avoid the negative part of it from repeating itself. But if in the United States, for example, there are people that are against, for example, the critical race theory, people that say, let's talk about everything that have happened to us. Some are saying, no, if you talk about that, somebody is going to feel bad. Because you are going to feel bad, I shouldn't talk about things that hurt me. Now, you want me to forget it and move on. How do we even do that? Please help me.
You can't. You can't forget it and move on. It has to be addressed, it has to be acknowledged. In so doing, that's how you're able to heal. You cannot heal a land or heal a people without addressing the issues that concern that land or that people. There has to be, again, communication. There has to be admittance or admission, I'm sorry, on the part of the wrongdoers. And so in trying to remove history from schools and trying to remove history from nations and trying to remove history from people's minds and people's hearts, you're not creating a conducive atmosphere for healing. You can't just sweep everything that has happened in the past under the rug, because the past, history, is what made us who we are and what we are today. It has to be addressed. And whether or not they want to address the full truth in schools or the full truth in different countries, it's still going to be talked about. There's still going to be someone who's going to find a way to publish that information, to get that information out to the masses. So there's no avoiding it, there's no hiding it. Um, Whether or not the so called people that be want to actually um, have those conversations is another thing. But those conversations are going to be had one way or the other. One way or the other, they're going to be had. And the people who have them are going to be able to heal. They're going to be able to help find a process, a means, a way to be able to move forward. It's like any relationship with a husband and wife. You have an argument. You may be upset for a couple of days, and I'm not making light of history because this may not be a very solid analogy. However, in order for that relationship to grow, to move forward, in order for there to be cohesiveness in the household, peace in the household, it has to be addressed. You need to talk about it. You need to come up with a solution so that if something should transpire to where that same situation arises, you know how to handle it moving forward. You know how to go and compromise with one another. Everyone must give 100% in a relationship. It's not a 50-50 thing, it's 100%. And the same has to be done with history and dealing with history. We need 100% of the history in order to do 100% of the healing.
Thank you so much for that. The healing must take place, and it is fundamentally important. Of course, we can see what happened in Rwanda after the genocide. We see the country really making a genuine effort to heal, and we can see the result. No, there are only very few countries in Africa that have done this, so that I'm saying that it is possible to heal. but we need to be genuine in the process. You see, maybe the one of South Africa, we can also look at that, but that is a completely different situation. Uh, that in Nigeria would never really heal because the politicians in Nigeria are very good in this, in their divisive approach. But let's look at the United States again. I'm making examples of Africa to say that United States it's not just completely isolated in the world. It's a country. It have its own bad thing, but it's also have a lot of good thing that we made mention of. That is very important. But now, this is my curiosity. What is the government afraid of in talking about history? Is it because it doesn't have the capacity to address it, or it just doesn't want to address it? Because when you talk about history, now this is how I'm looking at it, like the water, like a pond. Now, when you throw a stone in the pond, you trouble it. You have splashes every here and there, but they will eventually will settle. Are they afraid of that little trouble where everything is looking like a little bit of chaotic and then getting settled? That they are not prepared to talk about this and therefore pretending it never happened, thereby preparing a time bomb that will eventually explode because there is no way it cannot explode. If you kill somebody, there is a price to pay. Nature will hold you accountable. There is nothing in this world that you will do without paying for it. So whether you hide it for now, it happens when you are not even prepared for it, you are no longer strong for it, then it's going to destroy you. Or you open up, address it. Let's open up. Let's talk about what have happened. Then we will heal over and become stronger. So the question therefore is it because the United States, is not strong enough to handle the little turbulence, therefore addressing what have happened? Or is just denying, therefore stripping the homicide, the genocide, the idea that people need to be hung on the tree? That is sacrilege to the human family. There had to be something to be done about that because those people have family. You cannot ignore that. If not, why are we talking about why are we talking about Holocaust? People, those are people too. They were killed. There is epic genetic that will carry on for generations to come. It is real. Because it is real, that is why we are talking about it. So the one that have happened to the African American is also real. We cannot just say that is not important. It is important. So what do you say about that?
Whew, that's a lot. And so I would have to say that I think the United States is more than prepared and capable of making things right. You have a lot of people talking about reparations. When the slaves were released, they were promised 40 acres and a mule, and of course, that did not happen for many. Black Americans created towns. Towns were burned down, Rosewood and a few others. You had Black Wall Street; it was destroyed. There's so much in history in which the African American the black man, the black woman, the black children succeeded. They propelled. They got an education and they educated one another and they stuck together and it was a community. But there were those who were in the United States that did not want that to happen. And I think that reparations can be done. The United States is an extremely rich country, and they have the means. The government does what the government wants to do, and I think that no, there is no way that you can possibly sweep any of that under the rug. Yes, we had the Holocaust, and we're talking about the Holocaust, and there are some things that are happening where people are being, um, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Compensated for things of the past. And I think that needs to happen for our African American brothers and sisters as well. I believe that there's going to always be some sort of contention in that area until some form of reparation is done. There's going to always be something going on in the background that's going to keep people unhappy because the true cause, racism, division, has not been addressed. And I don't think that as a society we are going to be able to completely wipe it away. I believe that it's going to take one person at a time. It's going to take, I keep coming back to communication. It's going to take communication. It's going to take conversations for those things to to happen, to heal. And the United States, no matter how much they may try to erase the past, it's not going anywhere. It's like I said a moment ago, there's going to always be someone who's going to bring up the past, who's going to do the research, who's going to go back to the motherland and find out exactly where their family originated from and learn from the people who were there in those countries, in those villages, in those towns, and bring that information back to the United States. There's no escaping the history. At some point, it's going to have to be completely and fully addressed.
I wanted to address another area in the conversation, which is the healing or the transformation of the experiences for our own good, because it have happened to us. We are going to own the story. There is a signature program that we have in Aclasses Media. We call it Own Your Story. What have happened to you, you are going to own it, but you are going to use it to transform yourself and move to the next level. So that is where I want us to spend some time. So to people like the African American, which is part of the African diaspora, looking at what have happened today, because a lot of bad things still happen within the community today. Whether you are looking at countries like France, Germany, or Italy, where I am, or in the UK or Canada, a lot of bad things still happen. But of course, it's different from what have been happening in the past. We should be able to use this story, grow, and use it for our own good to grow so that we can heal ourselves and move beyond it.
I agree 100%. And I think in learning about your history, learning about your family history, you are able to actually go through the process of what has happened in the past to see how it has led to where you are today, and for you to be able to learn from your research. You're able to share that with others. You're able to elevate your own thinking in ways which would allow for you to be able to begin the healing process. Because you grow up hearing stories about different family members and things that have transpired and affected them, and hearing those stories and learning about those transgressions or those good things also affect how you are mentally, emotionally, spiritually. It may also give way to you being able to help other family members in the process of healing. We we are affected by those around us. My uncle once told me a long time ago, the decisions you make affect those that are around you. And it wasn't until literally I was about 18 years old when he said that to me. And I would have to say that it was literally about 20, 25 years later that I actually comprehended what he meant. And I can do something today that will affect my children later on in their life. And that same decision, that same action may be something that they do, especially if it's something that I, number one, didn't learn from. So let me just give you an example. Growing up, and this is just slightly off topic, but it's still a good example. Growing up, I was never taught about finances. So when I did learn about finances, the first thing I did was educate my children. And now, because of changing that small aspect of history, of development, of lack of growth in myself, it has affected my children. And by that, they are better stewards of their money and they're in better financial positions at the young adult ages that they are than I was when I was their age. So now let's bring that to history itself. So we learn that something negative has transpired. So are we going to continue to harbor those negative feelings, or are we going to make an adjustment within our own self to be able to move past that, to be able to look at that and say, hey, this is what happened. How do I feel about this? Let me address these emotions. And what can I do to make the next generation different? How they can respond differently to that circumstance. Because you want to educate them about what happened, but you want to be able to say, hey, this, and this transpired, but this is the result of that, and this is how we've improved upon that, and this is where we are today. So history is never going away, but the way we respond to it can make a difference in how we can move forward. Instead of being reactive. We must stop and think and respond.
That is so good. That is so beautiful. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. And that is really very deep. You see, some people think that they are alone. No, you are not alone. You are not alone at all. You see, in 2024, that was when I came to Italy. Now, a couple of years later, I started a research into the presence of Africans in northern Italy. From there, I've published over 7 books now. Now, having talked to a lot of people, I've come to understand that nothing is just happening at random. Everything is part of a plan. If we find ourselves in a certain area and we are doing certain things, let's not consider it as just by chance. No, it is not by chance. Particularly if you are an African and you have an African perspective of what reality means, in that we really all are connected. We are all one. So whatever we do, whether we know it or not, affects not only the people around us, it affects the entire world. It reverberates everywhere. Now, I was interviewing an associate professor in Texas. He's from Zimbabwe, and he told me something very important. He told me about the concept of personhood. In this explanation, I said, this is the best thing I've ever heard. Of course, picking from an African understanding of understanding what is a human being. And he said, as a human being, you are defined as someone who is connected to everything around you. Everything around you. That includes the human being, include the air, include the water, include the land. Because we are all connected. This can also be proven scientifically. Because you actually eat what you are. If you eat what you are not, you will die. The food is part of you. That is why it finds a place in you. You are hungry, you eat. You are not hungry anymore. What happened? Because those elements that you have consumed find a place in you. You are eating life. If you eat death, you will die. If you eat life, you will be alive. So everything around you is part of who you are. And he said, who you are is also connected to what have been before. What does that mean? Your ancestors. The story that have happened before you. Somebody might be wondering, but is that not philosophical? No, that is really the reality. In that, for you to be alive, you literally need to come out from a human being. There has to be a fusion between two human beings which lead to you. You are never a product of scientific research. You are not a product of religious illumination. You are really a child of a human being. Only that these human beings have lived many, many years ago, thousands and thousands of years ago. You are connected to them. Without them, you cannot be here. That is not a philosophy. That is real. And he said, you are also connected to the unborn, those who will be here after now. Because if there is no continuation, this is the end of life. But for us, that is not the end of life. Now, when you look at these 3 dimensions of understanding, just a simple thing as who a human being is, it means everything we do, we should be conscious of that. We should be careful of our decision because every action we take have a reverberation in the entire universe. So, I say this to mean, how do we encourage ourselves more? Again, I'm talking of the people of African descent and most importantly, the African diaspora to be more active in owning our story and using it as a way to heal. I want us to be more active in that. How do we encourage ourselves to do more of that?
Well, I would say honestly, having conversations like you and I are having now, um, teaching what we know in the classroom setting, speaking at different organizations, just making people aware of what is and what has been going on. In order for us to make changes, we have to address whatever was wrong or is wrong. You cannot move forward. You cannot be proactive until you address the quote unquote elephant in the room, whatever the circumstance may be. And in order, saying goes, 1% better every day. That's going to help improving ourselves, improving our lives. That enables us to also be a positive influence on the next person. And as long as we are thinking of that, then there is hope for the human race as a whole, um, to make a serious mark, a serious change, have a serious response to and in history. We can make those changes. Things can happen, but it is going to be one person at a time and a collective, overall. We at some point we need to look and see, excuse me, exactly what it is. You know, they say that when you're in sales, to be successful, you have to solve a problem. So there's much wrong with history. So what problem in history can we help affect? Can we help change? Can we help bring about a positive response in the future? How can we change the way words are said, the meaning of words, our actions? Everything starts in the mind. So you have to educate yourself and explore different avenues of being positive, of being able to reach that next person. You can't do it with an old mindset. You've got to become a new creature.
How do you really become a new creature? How do you do that?
It is going to take an understanding of who you are and what your purpose is, what you believe your purpose is in this life. And I believe my purpose is as an educator, be it in finances or be it in history in the classroom with the students. And, I let my students know I love them all. I care about them. I pray for all of them daily. I walk around my classroom and, think positive thoughts. I greet them in a positive manner because they come from different socioeconomic backgrounds. And you have to speak life. Everything out of your mouth should not be that of negativity. It should be of life. Regardless of the circumstance, there's always a positive uh, um, apple that you can pull out of there. You got this basket of fruit. There are 5 or 6 apples that have gone rotten, but there's that one apple that did not get spoiled, and you can wash it off and still be able to eat it. So, regardless of the circumstance that you're in, 5 or 6 things may have gone wrong, but there's always something positive that you can glean from that situation. And that one thing that you're able to glean is going to be able to help you become that new creature that you desire. Don't linger on the negativity. Look at what is good. Think on those things that are good.
That reminds me of a course that I created a couple of years ago. I call it The Good in Everything, that there is
Mm.
good in everything. That is really very good. Thank you so much for that. Now, but tell me, have you always been like this, or did you learn along the way?
I would say, hmm, I'm going to say learn along the way. If I'm going to be honest, because there are times where you know words that come out of my mouth would have been negative or ugly. Um, but I have learned that in order to change your circumstance truly, they say that you can manifest things. It, no matter what you're doing, no matter what you're doing, it literally starts in your mind. You have to be determined to desire to make a change. And in order to make a change, in order for there to be positivity, then you've got to put something positive in your mind. You can read. I read my Bible almost every single day. I pray almost every single day. Well, pretty much every day because I take my dog for a walk and that's my prayer time. And the Word of God says to think on things that are good. And there's no way that you can be successful in life if you say things to yourself like, oh, I'm no good, I'm not going to succeed. And even if you allow someone to come to you and speak over you and say ugly things, oh, like you may have that mean parent that tells that child, you're never going to be amount to anything. You're just like your father or you're just like your mother. Well, that may be very, very, very true. But here's the thing. I am not. my mother. I am not my father. I am an individual, and I don't have to do or be or say the things that made them up. I, as an individual, can say, I am not my circumstance. And that's exactly what I tell my students because many of them are in foster care. I mean, how is it you've got students that are 12, 13, and 14 years old dealing with anxiety, depression, trauma, just some harsh things that are going on in their life. And I let them know you're here, you've made it, and you can succeed. So you come in this classroom, you be positive, and I'm going to bring some positive energy in here. I make sure that what's rolling around in my mind is going to be positive, so that what comes out of my lips is going to be positive. And that's not to say that it happens 24/7. There might be some times when something ugly may come out, but I have to check myself and say that's not right. I have to make a difference. I have to speak life. So good morning, you look beautiful. Oh my goodness, you're so handsome. That's really a nice jacket. Just anything can make an individual smile and make their day. And you've given them that one glimmer of light, that one glimmer of hope, that positive connection. Everything else around them could be just so ugly, but they'll be walking home or going through their day and they'll remember that somebody said, "You've got such a pretty smile." That's the first step to 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 becoming a better person in yourself and in that individual. Because it only takes kindness. It only takes, once again, communication.
That reminds me of something. Um, I'm a little bit new here in Italy at the time. Of course, there were a lot of challenges, and at this time in my history here, I didn't have documents because my visa have expired, so I was sort of invisible illegally in Italy. Meaning I cannot find a job. I have no money. So, but I was always smiling because I've been writing. I think what have rescued me have been my writing because I will pour myself in it. Instead of keeping it in my head, I pour it on the paper. If I the first book that I've written there, I didn't even publish it, even though I've had a friend of mine who helped me to even translate it to Italian. But I'm going to publish this book this year now because I've written it. That is 12 years ago. So at this one occasion, there is this young Italian girl who said to me, he said, why are you smiling all the time? I told her, I said, I'm smiling all the time out of choice. And I said, I am doing this because if I don't do this, I will be sad. Because there were evident reason for me to be sad, but I chose to be happy. Why? Because I just make up my mind to do that. Because I don't want to carry the burden of sadness because I knew that it was going to be costly. I am alone here. My family members are in Nigeria. If anything were to happen to me, nobody is really here to help me. So I need to make up my mind to just be positive for my own sake. So I think we need to be really intentional about these things. I mean, you see, when you say something bad, you need to know that it hurts you more because you first of all need to process what you have to say. You say it, and at that moment, it still remains with you. You need to gradually dilute it before it leaves your system if you really had that possibility. Which is why are you punishing yourself? Whereas when you just become positive, you have there is nothing negative about being positive because it is positive. You talk of when you change. Was that something that actually make that happen to you? Was it because something happened that you decide to be more intentional about your positivity and what you are shining. You are shining, and I can see that. Because none of us are born just shining. I give example of gold and diamond all the time. If you take out the gold or diamond from the dust, it's like every other dust. Because in the spot When you find the diamond, it's not shiny, because if it is shiny, you will just see it immediately. It's dirty like every other dust. But you take it out, you put it to the furnace, you burn it, you burn it, you burn it, then it becomes sparkling. So this is life happening to us. It need to happen to us, otherwise we'll just die as children. So what have happened to you?
I would say just disappointment in myself and not succeeding in some areas in which I had decided to go. So I went off to college, but I didn't finish college in the quote unquote expected time. There were a lot of things that I didn't understand. I don't know that I was really ready for college at the time that I went. And I had the support of my family and everything, but even then, my family didn't quite know. You know, my mom and my stepdad, who I grew up with, didn't quite know and understand exactly that how that diagram for college would actually go. So I was doing things on my own, wasn't able to complete college, ended up dropping out, things of that nature. But as I got older, I began to understand and learn about the different things that happened. So both of my children completed college, and I actually helped them with all the paperwork that needed to be done. I actually just did everything for them in that regard to make sure that they would be successful in attending college and not having to take on that burden of learning how to fill out all the paperwork and everything. And I think with that happening, when I married later in life, I decided, you know what, I'm teaching my children that they must go to college, so I need to go. Well, having had that first experience, I was able to come back, and having learned, I was able to come back, look at things differently. I was more mature. I was able to go through the process fairly easily for myself so that when it was time for my children to do what they needed to do, I was there to help them. I mean, they literally didn't have too much to worry about. Just go sign up for class and go. If you need some extra money, reach out to me, whatever the case might be. So I think that might have been the starting point. Of things that have happened to me, and learning that if you step back, look at the situation, and learn how to actually proceed and go through the process, then you can make it better for yourself and make it better for others. So I would have to say that would be one of the things that affected me. I needed to step back and learn how to do something. And I love to learn. So I get excited when I'm shown something and I'm able to catch on and then go ahead and do the process again by myself without someone coming behind me and saying, hey, this is what you need to do. And, understanding that if you keep an open mind, if you are positive in thought, you're going to attract positivity. You're going to attract someone that's just going to want to walk up to you and say, hey, I noticed you were doing such and such. Do you mind if I offer you some advice about that or show you how else you can do it? There might be an easier way. So I have learned that negative energy brings negative energy. And that in itself is just heavy. Who wants to walk around with that literal cloud over them on your shoulders, walking around with such a heavy, ugly, nasty weight? When you are smiling, when you're intentional about your smile, when you're intentional about looking in the mirror and saying, I'm smart, I'm beautiful, I'm handsome, I'm intelligent, I'm going to be successful today, I'm going to manage my time, I am going to set up a schedule. I'm going to get up at 5 in the morning and go for my walk and pray, or write in my journal, or read my Bible, or read a self help book, or anything in that nature. Just pouring into yourself will allow for you to be, as you said, intentional about your smile. People ask me all the time, well, how you doing? And I tell them I am always blessed. I don't care if I just got in a car accident. I'm blessed because I walked away from the car accident. The car might have been totaled or the car might have had some damage, but I'm blessed. I am still here. I am still able to make a difference in my own life as well as in someone else's life. So being intentional is definitely something of importance. You've got to smile. You've got to be happy with yourself.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. There is a lot there that people can take away. And this is why we are here. We are sharing our experiences so that people can learn. And it is important that we do this. Obehi Podcast, we take the time to learn about the people. You see, we started from your experience in New York, growing up there. So that the reason we are doing that is because we want people to connect to the real human being, other than just the profession and what you do. And that is very important because we are all human beings, and that is what we want to connect to. That is really, really, really interesting. Thank you so much for that sharing. Now, when you look back to where you are coming from, how do you feel about that? Share that with me.
Where I'm coming from. Well, I would say overall my experience through life has been a good experience. So, I would like to think that I am coming from a place where I've had an opportunity to really address things about myself, to improve upon myself, to help me be the person that I am today. And growing up in New York, and I was there, like I said, for just a short time, it exposed me to different people. Um, New York, like some areas of California, is the melting pot. New York really is the melting pot of everyone. You're going to find almost every nationality there. And you are able to learn about individuals, of course, just from speaking with them. And I think, being a military child, moving to different states, it allowed me to be exposed to different personalities, different cultures in the different states. When you're in a southern state and a northern state, an eastern state, even in the West, when I lived in California, I've lived in Virginia, Alabama, South Carolina, North Carolina, New York, gosh, several places, and you meet different people. Now, people are people as far as I'm concerned. And as I said, these emotions are from one person to the other. So, um, I believe that my experiences have made me an all around better person. It allows me to be able to step back and just say, hey, this person may be doing such and such. I'll give you an example with my students. Being a new teacher to them, I had them do an exercise. I spent a couple of days in the class and I said, I want you to write down everything you think you know about me, and then I want you to tell me a little bit about yourself. And in doing that exercise, it allowed for some of the students to apologize about their behavior toward me. And then it also gave me some great information about them. And there are some students where I will pull them one on one and talk to them and address them and say, hey, we have to be careful about the things that we say, the people we socialize with, different things of that nature, because it is going to affect you. It's going to shape your opinions and the things that you say. And I can see in some of the students how those simple words have really had an impact on them. They may change their seat in the classroom because there might be a student there who is just unruly and they know that they shouldn't be around that type of student. And so I think my experiences, from where I've come from to where I am today, as I've stated, has helped to shape me, but it also has given me insight into people, and it also allows me to help shape the students that I teach. Because as a teacher, you're pouring into them and you're helping to shape that mind, and you want it to be shaped with positivity because they may not be getting that at home. So I have to make sure that everything that I've experienced up to this point helps me to bring forth positivity, being intentional, as you stated.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. Now, when you look at the future, looking at what you're doing, looking at where you come from, looking at the children that you are impacting, what do you see?
Wow. In the short time that I've been doing this, I'd have to say that I really do see some changes. Um, Goodness, it's a long story regarding the teaching aspect. However, Well, like I said in the one example, I literally pulled one student out of the class. Well, I'll give you a different example. I pulled a student out of the class and I said, listen, you walk in here, you're going against school policies because they're not allowed to wear a hood, they need to wear a belt and blah, 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 their attire and everything. And I said, these students follow you. I said, so when you come in here and you act like that, that causes me to have to raise my voice and tell the students to sit down, be quiet, do this, do that. I said, and we shouldn't have to do that. So after having that conversation with him, this is a one on one private conversation outside the classroom. When he came back to my class, because I think he was out for a day or two, when he came back to my class, his attitude was completely different. And he actually spoke to another student who I had had to put out of the class my first day there within a 5 minute period. Both of those students now come in, they're polite, they're gentlemen, they do what's asked of them. They don't give me any problems. They help to maintain the classroom. So I can see that a simple conversation, being positive with a person, allows for me to make a change. It's a small change and it's going to take some time. It's a small change, but I can see that the words that I say, the positive words, instead of ranting and raving like something they may be accustomed to, the positive words, are making a difference. And when they come in my classroom, that conversation, I believe, is still ringing in their ears.
This is really the joy of a teacher, of someone who is inspiring other, because you can see the transformation, you can see the change. It's so rewarding. It's so rewarding. I can guarantee that. You see, we're not touching your financial literacy campaign today because we are coming to that on another day dedicated to that conversation. So I want to thank you so much again for this time and this sharing, this value that you have dosed out here. We really appreciate it. How can people connect with you? Those who want to learn more about what you are doing and who want to connect with you. And when you say that, how would you like to conclude this conversation?
I am all over social media. I have a LinkedIn account, Instagram account, Facebook account. My phone number, email literally is all over all of those accounts, and my email. So if they just want to look up Jean Rene, aka JR, on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook, they will certainly find me easily. But my phone number in the United States, 813-810-0871. My email, I'll give you a simple one, JRSPANNDAVIS I would say that we can all make a difference in our own lives as well as in someone else's life. We must be open to change, open to someone having a different opinion. And we must be mature enough to understand that it takes communication. We must stop and think, and we must respond and not react. We'll get a lot further if we do.
Thank you so much for that. That is really heavily packed. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
And thank you. It's been a pleasure, definitely, speaking with you this morning.
Thank you so much.